Yeah. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to this to the first session of Coach's Corner in its new avatar. Till last month, we were doing it once every week. Given that the lockdown was out, a lot of people started taking their weekends as family time, and we were having this every Saturday at 4 p.m. It has become so much of a habit that today I saw a couple of people logging into Zoom at 4 o'clock into my Zoom account, and I get an email saying that there are these people sitting on your Zoom account. So I had to dial into that meeting and then tell them, sorry, it is at 6 and not at 4 o'clock. I'm glad that it has become a habit for many people, the 4 o'clock
Yeah.
routine. And for this session of Coach's Corner, we have Sanjay Devudu with us. Welcome on board, Sanjay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Sanjay. And just a bit about Sanjay. He is a highly accomplished HR leader with experience in diverse sectors and in different geographies. He was associated with reputed brands which are both Indian as well as global, like ICICI, Satyam, Ashok Leyland, GE, Dell, and Mylan. He's actually known for his ability to envision an organization's growth map, okay, and align the HR policies with it, and build a roadmap to achieve it, which is a very niche, which is particularly very niche when it comes to a lot of organizations. He's also an executive coach, and he's coached several senior leaders in organizations like Mylan and Ashok Leyland. He's a certified senior professional from HR, human resources, and member of Society for Human Resources Development, SHRM, from the US. He's also a certified assessor for Insights, a psychometric tool through the Insights Corporation in Canada. And he holds an MBA in HR from Institute of Management Development, Seychelles, and is an executive education alumnus from the Indian School of Business. And also part of the NHRD network and Indian Society for Training and Development. An interesting thing about him is that he's hexalingual. He's proficient in 6 languages. I'm just 50% there, and I don't know whether I'll be able to cover the distance in the rest of my life. He's proficient in Hindi, Telugu, Kannada, Tamil, German, Creole, and basic French. He's a voracious reader, has a special interest in understanding and learning ancient Hindu scriptures, traditions, and in addition to being an aspiring Carnatic singer. Welcome on board, Sanjay. I hope I did justice to the vast experience that you did. I tried my best to kind of bring it short, but I hope I did justice to it.
Well, if you see any pink here, it's not the wall. It's just blessing. It was too much of an introduction. It was too much of an introduction. Thank you so much. Absolute privilege and pleasure to be here. Thank you, Aditya.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Sanjay. So, an interesting thing about Sanjay is I got in touch with Sanjay on LinkedIn, and I got in touch with him on LinkedIn because of the highly engaging posts that he used to do. He takes a message, weaves a beautiful story around it, and posts it. And if you are in the middle of something and you open it, you will start cursing him because you can't stop reading it. If you want to read it later on. So they're so engaging. And Sanjay, what I want to ask you is how did you kind of arrive at this? How did you kind of start this journey of weaving the stories?
So once again, thank you so much, Aditya, and good evening to everyone. Absolute privilege to be here and to have been invited. So, like many of us, I was also part of the corporate, and at least to me personally, I never really built a brand, if I may say that. And the luxury of having the brand of the organization or the title and the chair, which is the usual problem that many of us face, is what kept me in the comfort zone, as I was moving along. So I was okay. I was active on social media, mainly LinkedIn. Prefer to avoid some of the others, but so it didn't really give me that, push, if I may say. The moment I moved out and started on my own is when the luxury of all those things that I mentioned vanished. So I started from, it was a zero-sum game, as an absolute newcomer into an area where there were already established veterans and people who had made a name and mark for themselves. So that's the arena into which I moved in. And thanks to the credibility or the experience or the connects or whatever you want to call it, things went well. I mean, I started getting projects and I was doing projects, and whether it was HR related or coaching or whatever. But at some point of time, I felt, what next? How do I move beyond this? It's all great to keep getting referrals, keep getting referred. It feels good that people have trust in you, and you keep getting projects. But there has to be something. I have to move beyond this to something new, something newer clients, newer experiences, and so on. And that's when the whole process started. To say, if I go out to some, like they call it a cold call, go out to a company and tell them that this is who I am and this is what I do, it's not going to run. Because they have absolutely no idea of who I am, right? Unless it has been referred by somebody. Even then, they need to have, whoever I'm speaking with, need to build that trust, build that confidence in them to say, this guy makes sense. For which there was a necessity to build a personal brand. Though my firm has a name along with my partner and all that, it doesn't work. They need to know. And we are in an arena where we are not selling a tangible product. It's not about saying these are the features of this product and this is what you will get and this is better than so many other products and so on. It's an intangible service, and therefore trust and confidence have to be absolutely high. That's where it started from. And to be able to do that, I needed to build a brand for myself, or rather, at least build visibility, if I don't want to call it a brand. And so when that thought came into play, the next obvious thought was, so the why was answered, and then it was the how, right? So how, personally, I believe for this the kind of work and the kind of professional arena that we come from, I thought there could be nothing better than a platform like LinkedIn, which needs to be used to the best of its capabilities and the best of my capability. And so the how also started. Then came in the what of it. So fine, there is a platform. I have a profile. I will enhance my profile by making sure that all the relevant details are there, etc. But what next? What do I post? So a lot of questions and thoughts came around that. I was contemplating a couple of things with due respect to all those who are active on the platform. One of the things I wanted to stay away from was either reshare posts. I tried that. I experimented with that. That was one. Two was cut paste some article or link and share it there. I didn't want to do that because that really is not giving me any edge in any way. The next was, there are enough and more WhatsApp forwards which I can again reshape, put it into a format here and put it up. I said no, doesn't work for me. It's too much of that happening. So if everything is a no, then what? It had to be something original. It had to be something different. It had to be something engaging. And having said all these words, the bottom line was simplicity, articulation, and a message. Those were three parameters which I said at no point of time can be compromised. So that came to that kind of a conclusion. And that's when I said, so, okay, fine. So now I go back to the how do I do this? I've arrived at some kind of a framework for myself. What do I do? So thinking about theories and topics and posting them there and presenting stuff, even if I type it out myself, still doesn't resonate. And with all due respect, once again, to the world, 70%, 75% of the world still relates to what is practical, down to earth, and relatable to them. Not everybody will appreciate huge theories and already what we have studied in college and then regurgitate here was not my intention. So I went back to my favorite childhood passion of stories. And I think somewhere I should thank my paternal grandmother for it. Every single day there used to be a set of stories. And fortunately for me, even if I sound like I'm bragging, the family legacies that I come from both my maternal and paternal side gave a lot of material for my grandmother to share stories. So both the families from my mom's and dad's side have very, very rich legacies. I don't want to go into that right now, but so that gave me a platform, and she used to narrate a lot of stories, and it used to resonate very well. So I said, I think that is the best thing to do. And there have been a few people that have been using storytelling as an effective medium for a while, and I had observed that as well. But it's only off late that it has kind of gone viral, to use the current day terminology. And I said, that's the best thing to do, So that's how the journey started. And then, I started posting regularly. And so here I am today. I know that was a kind of a long answer, but I had to give that history of, since it was a journey, I had to travel that way.
That is fantastic. Actually, I quite love the way you've built a framework around those three principles, and I quite connect with the fact that you said that stories resonate well, which is so true, because human brains are wired for stories.
Absolutely.
And wherever it comes, whenever it comes through a story, it kind of sits with us forever, basically.
Correct. So, and I must add here one statement that I worked for myself every time that I was planning this journey was the belief that everything and everyone has a story. That was the credo with which I went. Take anything for that matter. When even after this session, we sit back and think. You pick up a phone, you pick up you pick up a glass, you pick up a book, you pick up a person. There is a story behind it. What is that story, and what can you get out of that story? So that statement was constantly in my mind. Everything and everyone has a story. How do I use that?
Perfect. That's awesome. Actually, everything and everyone has a story.
Yeah,
it's going to stay with me for quite a long time. So let me take a pause and see if anyone from the audience has any questions. I got a lot of them, but
may I go first?
Sure, Reshma.
Sanjay, I love to read your posts, your story, and how you weave the narrative into the message that you're trying to give out is fantastic. So kudos. I just want to say that. That's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so very much.
All right.
Thank you, Reshma.
Can I add something also?
Yeah, Jasbir, go ahead.
Please.
It's not a question. So yeah, I totally agree with you that everyone has a story, and everybody is, Aditya, Reshma, they're all talking about it. So I will be connecting with you very soon on LinkedIn and see how you weave those stories. I would love.
My pleasure and privilege. Thank you.
So I think everybody is in awe of you, and they're trying to kind of assimilate it, what you said.
Can't get any redder, Aditya.
Looks like a lot of color changes for you, Sanjay, during this session.
I know. That is why I said it can't get. You see the background I chose? Exactly that. So that it deflects. Sorry. Please carry on.
I hope your wife doesn't call me up and say, "What did you do with my husband?" So
Well, no, I think I'll stay in this room for a while until I walk out. So.
Great.
I guess tomorrow each of us will know in LinkedIn when Ashley posts.
That's a good one, Shankar.
Yeah, because I can sense that he's doing something right now. कुछ doodling कर रहा है वो वहाँ पे बैठ के.
Okay. So since nobody has a question, I'll move to my next question. Reshma, you want to ask something or?
No. I
Okay.
just thought I'll come back.
Okay. So one thing that I wanted to ask you, Sanjay, is how do you go about writing these stories? In the sense, do you first pick up the message that you want to give and then try to identify a story that is relevant and then kind of put them in? Or you pick any story that comes to your mind and then see what is the message coming out of it? How does it go?
Okay, great question. Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
So there are different angles with which I approach this whole, this whole journey. One is when I started by saying everything and everyone has a story. I could pick anything under the sun. But then the thought that came about was, what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to build visibility for myself as a HR professional, right? Which means the human capital domain, people, talent, and everything around that is what is my forte. Right? That's one aspect. Second is, over the last 3 decades, the enough and more experiences that I have had with multiple corporates, multiple people, geographies, stakeholders, external, internal. It's I just need to think back on that and say, what can I pick up? So that was one side. The other thing was, within this domain, I built a set of, I can't call it built, but just say had a set of themes running around under the human capital umbrella. Everything from recruitment, so the entire employee life cycle, recruitment, onboarding, training, performance, payroll, compensation, blah, blah, blah. All those, employee engagement, learning related. Then moved on to, and also added emotional intelligence, the emotional intelligence, then diversity and inclusion. So those kind of aspects as well. And then empathy, all those traits that we speak of, which we expect or would ideally like employees or managers, leaders to have, picked up those kind of things as well. So this became a bucket. And so it was like a lottery system, just put my hand into that basket and pick up a chit, whatever is the topic. It started that way. Whatever is the topic that comes out of that chit is where my mind starts whizzing around what story. That was one. That being said, picking up stories, where do you pick it up from was your question. So it's a combination of things once again. As I'm reading stuff, I try to see, oh, this is interesting. Is there something in this? Right? Is there something in this? Occasionally, even a movie that I watch says, wow, that's some message there. So I just record that somewhere and say, this is one thing that I may want to write about someday. Not everything translates into a story, but at least it is there on my list. And then literally surfing through, the net, reading various things, picking up. That's another aspect. And then there are stories by themselves, which I keep reading from books and whatever. So all these become input material, the raw material for me. And from there, I pick up one. Like I said, I started with the chit system, but then slowly moved to being conscious of saying, if I post about a particular theme today, let's say we are talking of empathy today. I try and make sure that I don't post about empathy for the next week or 10 days so that it doesn't become repetitive. So there is a periodicity that I try to maintain between each theme. Purpose being engagement. Don't want to end up being labeled as, अच्छा, this guy writes only about empathy. अच्छा, चलो ठीक है. इसकी empathy के बारे में बाद में पढ़ेंगे. You know, that thought should not come to people's mind. So going back to one of your statements at the beginning of this call, you say you curse me for, you know, having opened that post because you want to read it. That's my idea. Whether I am achieving it successfully, how successful, how viral, I'm not getting into that. I don't want to monitor that as well. But the idea is to build that engagement. So my input, all the raw materials come from these different sources. And there are, of course, the fourth and most important one is all the experiences that I have had. And even conversations which have been in the recent past, sometime add to my database of what do I want to write about. And that doesn't mean I have, like, you know, it's a cornucopia of stuff. I do have my brain freeze days. I do have my absolute blockout completely. You know, it happens. I'm not saying that, but raw material is collated in this manner.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
So very structured format that you follow, Sanjay.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Reshma?
Yeah, it's a very, very, very structured format that you follow. So kudos to that. That gives me some thoughts as well, including what you said. You wouldn't like to repeat, say, another 10, 15 days. So I'm sure you have a little diary where you jot down everything. It is phenomenal.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the idea is to keep it. My core purpose is on content, which should be fairly original, I would say, because I pick up stories from different sources. That is one. Second is consistency. Good, bad, ugly, make that presence felt. The ultimate why is making a presence and a visibility.
Yeah.
So therefore, consistency. And at the end of the day, it has to be engaging.
All right. That I'm sure it is. More than engaging.
Thank you.
So I really like the way you have linked it back to the why, basically. If you see, one of my biggest takeaways from this point that you have made is that you should know your brand first, what kind of a brand you want to build. Identify the aspects that go with that brand and weave your stories around those aspects. Absolutely. So that people know you for that. And that's a fantastic thing. Great one.
Thank you.
Anything more from the audience? Any other questions?
Yeah, Sanjay, thank you very much. I think you enlightening us a lot. There's one question. How often do you post?
Every day.
Every day.
Okay.
I think there are more than one post in a day, Sanjay, because I don't know, is it LinkedIn or is it you? I don't know, but I keep getting... No, just
one a day.
Okay.
However tempted I am, if I have something which I'm itching to go with a second post, next day.
Okay.
One of the...
To once a day, Amit.
Yeah, one of the algorithms in LinkedIn at this moment is to just post once a day, not more than that. When you post more than once a day, the LinkedIn algorithm actually gets you down in terms of value. So when you post once a day, there is a higher value. That's what I learned recently. It could change in the longer run, but yeah, at this point of time, that's the way to go.
Oh,
One
that's
post.
good to know. I didn't know that, but
Yeah, good to know.
So you unconsciously knew about algorithm.
other than the word, I didn't know much about how it works in the background as far as LinkedIn is concerned. But there is a sense of to answer Amit's question, to take it further a bit. Personally, what I believe, Amit, is that pull factor reduces if you do too much of it, which is the case with most things. And if it is something interesting that you would like people to introspect over after reading or listening, then we need to give them the time to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And therefore, my purpose has been my belief and purpose is to make sure that it is once a day in the morning. That's it.
And that too before 9 o'clock, right?
Well, that is something that I have figured out by trial and error. There are certain time zones in which people seem to be accessing
Correct.
the platform, and it looks like either when they're moving from home. Well, now it is work from home, but for those of you who are moving, it's before 9:30 ish, or it is post. And again, it's very random. There is nothing. Suddenly, you see spikes from. I have had spikes from 22,000 views down to 1,600 views the next day. So I have no answer, no clue to that. But morning and again late evening, it kind of spikes. Yeah.
Got it.
Any other questions from the audience?
Another one question is, Sanjay, that when you post your message on the LinkedIn, are you ensuring in some way that it's reaching your right audience that you want to connect with? I mean, ultimately, you don't want just views, right? You want people to come back to you, engage with you, and obviously get into business with you. So how do you ensure that that when you're posting something, it is reaching right audiences and it's going to the right kind of people that you would want to?
Great question. Thanks for asking that. So there are, again, this is all no LinkedIn expert, but by experience, what I have learned. Initially, when people start, so the way I started filtering the need of the kind of audience that I want to connect with. One is those who are viewing, which is right, which is fine. The moment somebody reacts to a post, at the end of the day or some point of time, I go through all those who have only reacted to the posts and see, are there individuals who, and like you rightly said, at the end of the day, it is what am I getting out of it, right? One is visibility. Second is we are all in the business of business, so we need that business as well. So who are the people who I think can be influencers and who can probably be, I will be on the top of their mind recall when they need some HR help. I go through that list and pick and connect with them. That is one. Second is reach out to, within that I have my own segment. I generally don't work with the large corporates for the simple reason that they have their established teams, large teams working. And in some cases, again, with all due respect, their choice of wanting to work with only brands. So it has to be Kelly's or Aeons or KPMGs of the world. Absolutely fine. No issues. I've been there in the corporate sector, so I know. So my segment is the entire SME sector, growing organizations. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. And I have seen that it works. So I choose those kind of people and connect with them. And by virtue of having started to do that, the number of requests that I start getting or I have started getting have also increased. And initially, I used to accept everything just for the sake of building a number. Now, slowly, I have started filtering the requests that I get as well. One group of individuals that I never reject, irrespective of who they are students and
Yes.
freshers.
Yes.
All students, all freshers, I accept. That's because there is a sense of purpose in me as well that I have put for myself to say, help them.
Mm.
They're reaching out to you to learn something to help. If I'm able to do that, I will. And trust me, to come to the last part of my answer about the business side of things, in the last 6 months, about 4 deals that came through LinkedIn only, which is not bad
Oh.
in my line of work, right? And 2 students and freshers and even experienced individuals who reached out to me to say, can we have a chat with you? We just need some guidance. We have a clutter in the mind. Can you help us unclutter that? Can you please review my resume and help me polish that up? I am an aspiring HR professional and I'm confused as to what I need to do. Those are very enriching conversations. And of course, other than the help factor, there is a selfish motive. My raw material is coming in from conversations and experiences. So these are multiple things that happen, and that's how I connect with people. I hope that answers your question to some extent. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Before we go to the next question, I would just like to take a couple of minutes and talk about our next session and the guest for the next session. And fortunately, we have him amongst us today. Our next session, we have Ashley joining us. Ashley is a visual communicator, story coach, and a very experienced facilitator. So this is the first Coaches Corner session which we are doing like a sequel, where this session has a sequel to it. Today, Sanjay is talking about why, and Ashley is going to come and teach us how to weave those stories and give us a few tips and things like that. What he does by charging and for a living, he's doing it for free with all of us. And I'm really grateful to you, Ashley, for accepting the invite. And thanks a lot, Sanjay, for helping make this connect.
Pleasure. The whole purpose is to bring a set of like-minded people together as a community. So I'm glad that we are able to achieve that to some extent.
Yeah. And this session is scheduled for the 1st of September, which is the first Wednesday. So Coaches Corner will be the first Wednesday of every month, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., same time. The first Wednesday of September happens to be 1st September. And we would be having that session around the same time. So feel free to join in. Those of you who want to get frequent updates on this, just do connect with me, leave your number, or there's a Telegram channel where you can join where I keep posting about this. So feel free to connect with me and then I'll include you as part of that. All right, back to what we are talking. Any more questions for Sanjay? I want to ask you something, Sanjay. So we all are made up of different personalities. We all have our own personality types. We all have our own way of thinking, our own value system, and things like that. What aspects of your personality help you in weaving these stories and build that brand?
Wow. Okay. So that's going to be a tough one. But I think you hit the nail on the head, because the authenticity of what one writes or speaks needs to be there. One can come and faff anything, but then is that genuinely you?
Yeah.
That is the basic premise on which my writing happens. Okay. what aspects of my personality, and why did I say that? Is to answer the question of what aspects of my personality um, come in or get reflected there. For a long time, as people have told me, and my own style is absolutely simple. Don't get into jargon or heavy theories. It doesn't gel. Okay. Target the audience or keep them in mind, the target audience. So your message has to be according to them. So that is one. But coming back to traits, simple, transparent, trustworthy, empathetic, and be unambiguous.
Mm.
Those are the traits that I follow even in my daily life. And it helps, transfer the same kind of traits into what I write. So there were a couple of questions which I did receive, not couple, a few, stating, are all these stories real? Or is this just fictional? I said, that's a great question. I said, okay. So as far as the stories I pick up from other sources that I read, or, from the net or whatever, they are all stories that are available. I'm just culling out a message from there. Whatever you see as conversations that happen linked to a story, that conversation part is experience. And those would be genuine. Like this morning's post, for example. Names, of course, get changed, but that was an actual conversation. And, ended up Abail Mujhe Maar to the individual. But the story, using that, and I had read that story somewhere else. And I said, this is so true. Doesn't make sense. I continue to tell clients, boss, please simplify. Don't go by these age-old methods and practices that you have. You need to evolve with the times. And so this was a story that linked there. So I put them together. And that is who I am. When I say, boss, think through. Don't rush into decisions. That's who I am. So that's just an example of the trait that comes out there. I hope that kind of answered the question.
It does. It does. It does. Fantastic, actually. And I really love the way you weaved some of the things that you so strongly believe in, like simplicity, authenticity, being unambiguous, empathetic in the way you talk about them. And I quite resonate with what you are saying, because if what we are talking or writing doesn't sync up with our personality, we may be able to fool around for a few days, but not every day.
Absolutely.
It falls apart.
It does. It certainly does, because one loses track.
Correct.
You don't know. Like they keep saying, you tell one lie. To cover up that, you go on saying 10 other lies, and then it multiplies, right? This is what it is. Because somebody is going to catch you someday and say, but that day you said that, and today you're contradicting yourself by saying something else. So somebody, there are enough smart people there who are watching.
Correct.
And that erodes the entire purpose of what you're trying to do if you're not authentic.
Yeah, very true. And maybe shoots down the brand in a split second, which you have taken a long while to build.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
True. So true. Any questions from others?
Sanjay, there's one aspect of storytelling, is that while you give stories, maybe culled out from different sources you mentioned, and there's a message to it that you give out. Sometimes giving your own success stories, talking about where, there was a problem and then you had a kind of an issue there and how you came out of it, and then you have a message out of it and whatever. Does that build your brand faster? Because then you are actually, kind of telling to people, yes, this is what I did. and this is what happened, and this could happen to you, and then you can use my services, and also I have come out as a victor out of this. Whereas if you tell stories of other people, then okay, fine. I mean, you talk about any other stories there and people get a message. Sure enough. I mean, that's good. But if you tell your stories, I think then people identify with your brand much faster. Do
It
you think so
certainly
that
does.
works?
It does. It does. So there are again, personality comes into play here, Amit. If you notice some of the posts on LinkedIn, it is in the face selling, right? Direct, no problem. That's their personality. That's what they want to do, which is absolutely fine. My style doesn't say that. I can't. I'll be very honest. So there is, but I will also be honest enough to say there is subtle selling. And how do I use stories to do that subtle telling or subtle selling? In the last few months, 6-8 months, there have been a couple of posts, not couple, a few posts, which speak exactly what you're saying. So I'll give you an example. Met with a client, they had some training needs. So discussed with them. I asked them, what is your need? And they said, no, you please give us a menu of your training and we will do the training. We want to do some training. I said, I'm sorry, I don't work that way. I don't do any training. Tell me what is your problem? What is the challenge that it is? What is the negative impact it's having on your business? And therefore, how can I help overcome that, help you overcome that challenge? If that is something that you want to achieve in a true sense, I'm there to help you. Otherwise, please, I'm happy to walk away and find someone else. They said, no, how can you say that? I said, yeah, that's how I am. Sorry, I don't work that way. And I posted that. I created that into a conversation and said, this is not the way. This is unfortunately the way our own, and I have no hesitation in denigrating my own profession, because unfortunately there are people who don't know what they're doing in our own profession, right? So I say that very openly. That builds that trust and say, this guy is talking sense, and comes back. Why did I quote this particular example? This is the example which got me one of the leads of a client. So it does work, but constantly doing that is not my style. That's the only difference.
Yeah. Another question is, since we're talking about building a brand in totality and not just only to LinkedIn. So, what would you do in terms of building a brand apart from LinkedIn? I mean, which is the other way that you probably would use, and what are the ones which are most effective?
So it's in our line of work, I'll probably talk about that because that's where my forte is, and that's what my bread and butter is all about. It is the age of collaboration these days, right? So other than building my own visibility, I have collaborations with a couple of well-known HR consulting organizations which operate in the SME space. And my visibility or my credibility, my trust factor or their trust factor, my credibility with them is so high that the first point of contact for any HR project is me, right? And if so, like they say, first right of rejection or saying no. If I say, hey, listen, I don't have the bandwidth, or this is not an area where I want to put my hand in, they're fine. But the first point of recall, first point of contact is me. So building those collaborations is the second avenue. Third, more or less with 90% of all my past clients, there is a periodic check-in. How are you? All well? How's the work going on? Any COVID related, especially in the last 1.5 years? Any issues? All safe? Trust? Simple message. Recall. So those are 3 avenues that I use. There could be a lot more. Like I said, there is other social media which is available. I am not very comfortable with Facebook and Instagram and all that. Instagram, okay, I use for absolute time pass, nothing else. But for the kind of brand or the kind of visibility or the kind of image that I want to build for myself and my profession, I think LinkedIn serves me best. So that's why I'm using that. The rest are all collaborations and networks. I hope that answered your question. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I wanted to check in on LinkedIn when you put your stories or talk about yourself. I see a lot of people going overboard. So, how much is too much? Where to draw the line?
So, once again, great question. So, drawing the line can be considered from different angles. So, my drawing the line happens on how much of I is there. Nahi hota mere se. That's me as a personality, right? But some people are good at doing that, which is absolutely fine. So, where do you draw the line on me? That's one. Second, my belief is that what LinkedIn, so let me just rephrase that to say what LinkedIn has helped me with. I like writing. Okay. How much patience or how much of focus does a person have? 2 minutes? 3 minutes? How much of patience do I have if Jasbir is writing something regularly? I look at that and say, hey, listen, nobody has the time to read yaar. 2 page ka padhne ka nahi hai kisi ka. 3 minute, 4 minute maximum. If it is very interesting, somebody will probably take a second read later, right? To be able to do that, how do you position your message or story, whatever? So a very rough rule that I put for myself, and it has worked. And LinkedIn helped by saying 1200 characters is your limit. Now they've increased it, but to 3000. Earlier it used to be 1200 words, 1200 characters. Sorry.
Yeah.
So in 1200 characters, if you have to convey your message clearly, objectively, and engaging in an engaging manner, right? Keeping all those factors which I mentioned earlier was not easy. It used to take me at least 45 minutes. So I used to write. I used to write out the whole thing. And then at the bottom, you get that red message which you say you are over by about 2,800 characters. I got my base now. Let me start. So go back from the beginning and say, what are the words that are excessive? What are the words that are repetitive? What sentences can I curtail without taking away the quality of the meaning? So a lot of work went into that aspect also. So it helped me condense the message without losing its purpose and quality. And one other desi rule that I used was, as soon as somebody opens the post, my first thought, so what do I do? I'm sure others are doing the same thing. So that's how my thought process works. So the moment I open a post, is it in one screen, beginning to end? Yes. Okay, I'll read it. Do I have to scroll more than twice? Baad mein, when I have time. Psychological aspects of some things. And that is very normal, right? If you think back now, I'm sure some of you must be doing the same thing. Some of you, if not all of you. It happens because we don't have time, we don't have the patience, whatever it is. How much is my attention span? And where do I draw the line on that? So that was the second aspect. Third is engaging piece. Make it conversational. It's like a drama. It's like a script. A series of paragraphs. Continued tomorrow is also something that I have seen. I may not even see it tomorrow. And if I see it on day 4, I lose the thread completely. I'm not interested anymore. So those are things that I keep in mind when I keep posting. And like I said earlier, no God at this, but just saying I have my brain freeze days and nothing works, but something comes out. But consistency is the key. I hope that made some sense. Thank you.
Any more questions for Sanjay?
Tell a story, Sanjay. End with a bang.
Sorry.
I said, tell a story. End with a bang.
And with a bang. No, I think I have had enough of a story that I have told for the last 1 hour. So,
So, Sanjay, one question that I want to ask you is, were there instances where you've posted something and you were disappointed with it? And what was that?
So one of those brain freeze days where, I just didn't have anything. Didn't feel like articulating something, or the brain just didn't work. So I just picked and posted some stuff. According to me, absolute third rate. So interestingly, I've had mixed experience with that. What I considered third rate and posted suddenly shot up in views and reactions and likes, and something which I thought, this is good stuff. This feels good to post, and it has received a lukewarm response. So those observations, I don't have an answer for it, honestly. But definitely there are instances when it has just not worked. And there are also situations where I have material lying with me, some story, some stuff that is lying with me. I haven't yet been able to make sense of how do I weave it in. That also happens. So that's there. That keeps, that's there on the back burner, but it will come out one day. So yeah, to answer your question, definitely happens, no doubt.
Okay. We're coming to the close. About 3 or 4 minutes. Anybody has any question?
Hi, Sanjay. Kingshok here.
Hi, Kingshok. Good to reconnect after a long time.
Yeah, long time. You probably mentioned this, but no, I'm sorry I joined late. What was the trigger to move out of a corporate setup?
So, like I mentioned in the first line of my LinkedIn profile, been there, done that, seen enough rats, wanted to jump off the ship, to put it in a nutshell. And but on a more serious note, the idea was that there is enough and more that organizations need help with, right? Especially the SME sector, as I was mentioning earlier, and say, why don't I do that? And I also wanted flexibility with my own time to pursue other interests, which, irrespective of when people say, time, non-availability of time is an excuse, etc., etc. In reality, you're tired mentally, physically, everything. It doesn't happen always. So I said, all that put together is what triggered. And so here I am today. So,
good to have you, Sanjay. Thank you for coming over.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sanjay, Shankar here.
Yeah, Shankar.
Is there a specific way you identify those people from SMEs and try to connect with them? Or I know you mentioned something about it in the earlier conversation in the LinkedIn. How do you go and find those specific people? Is there any trick? Is there any particular action you take or way you do it? If you could share anything on that.
To be very honest with you, do I go out and do marketing on my own? By God's grace, I have not had the necessity to aggressively do that till date. So I must admit that. A lot of work comes through referrals, number one. Two, slowly, this LinkedIn platform is gaining traction. long way to go, but it started gaining traction. And 3, like I was answering Amit's question about collaboration with these other HR companies, a couple of the HR companies, they bring in business. So they do all the work.
Okay.
So the moment a client evinces interest to say, yeah, this is what we want, and can we discuss more, is when they rope me in. So the domain part of that conversation, I come in. Till then, opening the doors of the client is what they do. So that's how it's been working so far.
And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So we're at the top of the hour. I want to respect everybody's evening and everybody's time. Really want to thank you all for all the questions and the engaging conversations that we have had. And I want to thank Sanjay also for coming over and sharing his experiences with us. So it makes it easy for us rather than sit down and reinvent the wheel. So thanks a lot. Thank you very much for joining us. September 1st with Ashley. Hoping to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Sanjay.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much, Sanjay. Thanks, Aditya.
Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you. Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Sanjay. Bye-bye.
Look forward to staying connected.